Ja. Nice. We're in, right? Yeah. So this is my first YouTube video in ever, I guess. Um, I'm gonna do videos about game development. It's gonna be mostly my development of my own indie game, which I don't have a name yet. So it's kind of a passion project, side project. And I'm going to make series and challenges for game developers and designers, mostly for prototypes. So we're going to take a genre and create a prototype for that genre within a week. And a week is about 50 hours of work. So it's going to be those two. I'm going to live stream a lot of it. At least I hope so. These live streams, it's for us both. So for you to learn, if you're advanced developer, game developer, or basic, I'm mostly going to use Unity, but I will explore other technologies hopefully along the way. I develop in Unity, Unreal. I use some libraries, C# libraries, like Monogame, and I'm hoping to explore SDL, C++ SDL, media library, because some great games have used it and made absolutely amazing progress, especially for systematic games, right? I know probably no one's watching this, but and I'm talking to myself, which is fine. But if you would like to see that type of content, you can subscribe. I'm always happy to oblige to your needs. So yeah, so what we're gonna do in this live stream, which hopefully I'm gonna do a lot of these on the development of my game. So I'm just starting. Like this is the first day I'm working on my own game. Maybe just a bit before that, who I am. I won't share about the personal details, but who I am as a professional. I'm working in the gaming and simulation industry, which means also the military industry. For about 7 years, and I'm a freelancer. I worked with a lot of clients on a lot of different projects, and I've through those projects I gained a lot of experience in multiple frameworks and languages. I mostly use C#, sometimes use C++, and I mostly work on games. That's my phone. Caught me in surprise. Sorry. I'm just gonna put it on silent. Yeah. So so I've gained a lot of knowledge and experience throughout these projects. I do both game development and game design. I do game design also for various projects, both digital and non-digital, and I've taught game design and C# in a college, Israel. So that's it. It's about me. I hope we both learn, you and me. I can learn from you. If you have any interesting things to say, then feel free to post in the comments. I would love to hear your feedback on the way I work, on the ways that I do stuff. And without further ado, let's go and make some games, huh? Yeah. So this is not a blank project, because in the future I want this game to be based on the Entity Component System, ECS. Maybe I'll do a dedicated video on what ECS is, although there's a lot of material out there. I think that no one really captures the entire essence of ECS and the dot stack. Unity's dot stack. Quick word about it. Unity dot stack is basically three stuff. It's the burst compiler, it's ECS, and it's multi-threading using jobs. And I'm going to use the entire dot stack, and ECS is an architectural pattern in programming, so I'll use it in the future because this is a very systematic game. You don't know what the game is, but a long time ago, in the Flash era, let's see if I have Flashpoint on this PC. Yay, I do have Flashpoint. Yeah, so this game, the space game, you can see my screen grab. Oh, so you can only see the center of my screen. I have a white screen, that's why. Yeah, I'm getting used to the whole streaming stuff. Let me just decrease the music intensity here, so you can hear both the game and me. And I really hope I'm not infringing on any copyright by doing the stuff I'm doing right now. So, this is the space game. It's a very cool game. I think it's the first time I saw this mechanic, and the last time. There's only one game that copied this mechanic on Steam. I can't remember the name of it, but it did it. The implementation, in my opinion, is actually worse than the original implementation. By the way, this is a David Scott game. For anyone not familiar, David Scott was part of the Casual Collective, one of its co-founders. He's a great game designer and developer. I played a lot of his games during my teenage years, and he mostly makes back in the time he mostly make strategy and tower defense games. And he, by the way, he made Backyard Monsters, which is the precursor for Clash of Clans. It's like the same mechanic. So every game he made was really new and cool in the strategy genre. So if you want some cool ideas, see some cool games, I highly recommend David Scott's games. I really like his games. So I love this game. And it's like the Flash era, it's really compact. Like you can spend some time on it, like 2 to 3 hours to finish the missions, and then they made another game, the space game Missions, which is more missions. More single player missions. But I want to take this idea and expand on it, and I want to add some more factory elements to it. So I think there's a very cool space between factory and real-time strategy games. Now, factory games, most of factory games have some real-time strategy elements to them, especially with enemies, and you can build turrets and defend your base, but they are mostly focused on factory. And strategy games are focused on strategy, the elements we know from strategy. So I think there's a cool, like a very neat space between them, which we can occupy. So we're going to make a strategy game. And for anyone not familiar with the mechanics, I'll just show how the TSG mechanics works, the space game. So we build a bunch of you build a bunch of miners, which you mine resources with, right? So these are economic buildings, and then you have like your aggressive buildings, or let's call it military buildings. Yeah, so if I'll just fast forward, we'll see enemies are starting to come at us from the map. Now I know this is really, really small. Maybe I can do something about it. Zoom in. No, that's a bad idea. Let's do, yeah, maybe like this, you'll see better. Nice. So if I zoom out here, you can see I have some spaceships coming at me. And I'll just make them come closer. And they're here. Okay, so with the resources I'm mining from these asteroid fields, I can build more buildings, I can upgrade those military buildings, I can upgrade my miners, but according to Flash games, like this is really simple. Right? It proves the mechanics, the core mechanic. It works beautifully. I think the game is a lot of fun, and I can even play in the sandbox mode for hours. But it does have a limitation. Like the systems are not fully explored with more content. Like I would expect, like maybe 8 to 10 buildings I can build, military buildings I can build, and here you can build one building and have like two buildings and have 2 upgrade paths. So I would expect a lot of content from a fully fledged PC game. But it's a lot of fun, and as you can see, as the game gets harder and you get more interesting levels, you like building this live graph, which I also love. So this is my base. I can build connections. I have electricity, which is a resource in the game, and if I have low electricity, then maintenance of my buildings is low, and they can go out of commission and stuff like that. And this is the first resource which I need solar stations to get, and the second resource is the minerals, which I guess from these asteroid fields, which I can upgrade with and make some more stuff with. So at least one more resource for a fully fledged game, right? So this is like, I love the base mechanic, and I'm gonna turn off the music here with your permission. I love the base mechanic. It's just very very novel. I haven't seen it before. I haven't seen it afterwards, except at one time. And I think I could expand on it and make like a terrific single player game. In a fully fledged game, of course, we're gonna have a lot more mechanics, which we'll explore together in the coming videos. But that's my intention, and my intention with the prototype, which I'm gonna make first, is to make this game, right? Like to make the basic game, not to make the all of the assets and everything that goes inside. Like to make a copy of this with maybe something extra I want to try, because I want to try a couple of stuff that I love from Factorio games. I play a lot of Factorio. I want to try moving resources along these lines and feed it into other buildings, so buildings will need not only electricity, they will need more stuff. But I really want to simplify Factory. Like this is going to be a base defending game with Factory elements, but it's not gonna be like a hardcore Factory game. Like I said, I want to find the niche between the genres. So I want to try a couple of stuff. I don't know if I can make everything work out in the prototype, and the prototype I'm gonna make it in a week, 50 hours of work. It's not necessarily gonna be a whole week, because 50 hours might stretch a little bit further because I have other stuff to do. But I'm gonna spend 50 hours on it. We're gonna write terrible code, but we need to try the mechanics. That's what we need to do. And I think my microphone is a bit over the top, so I'm gonna make it less loud. Here, I hope this is better if I spoke too loud. So yeah. By the way, if you have any thoughts on the streaming quality, any feedback about that, I'd be happy to get that, because this is my first time and I don't know if I'm doing a good job. I don't know what you hear on your end, if it's horrific or whatnot. I'm using OBS, and I followed a couple of tutorials to see how to set up my microphone and get some filters going on, but maybe it's horrific. You can tell me. So yeah, this is the game. This is what we're going to make in the prototype. And maybe try a couple of more things. Like I want to try. The thing is, with the solar panels in this game, you can place them anywhere, and they just generate electricity. And I think we can make it more interesting, right? Maybe create planets, so we can place the solar planets close to suns, and maybe you get more resources if you place them closer to a light source. And maybe different buildings to generate different resources, stuff like that. We'll explore it in the prototype. The prototype will be also ugly on the front end, so we're going to use paid assets on the asset store or free assets, because our job is to make the prototype as fast as possible and to prove the gameplay. We're not here to prove anything else. It's, by the way, in this stage, like the very early prototype, it's not even a demo, it's like a very early prototype. It's important to know who to show it to, because you can't show it to anyone. Because if you show it to your audience, for your players, they will criticize a lot of the stuff that's just not there yet, right? The UX, the UI stuff that you say, okay, I don't care about the UX and the UI right now. I don't care about the UI UX. I care about the gameplay, the core gameplay. Is there anything there? Is it fun? Is it cool? Is it streamable? Is it marketable? Does it have like a core? Is it fun? Right? Is it fun? And if it's fun, if you see like this, I call it the gamer stretch. Like when you see someone gets really close to the screen and is bending over the keyboard and is looking intently at the game. Like if I see that in a person that plays my game, I know there's potential in there. So it's important to know who to show it to. I usually show it to friends from the industry, especially game designers who can overlook the stuff I don't want to work on, like I said, UI UX or assets or stuff like that. And I do tell them what to concentrate about, what they should focus on. And the earliest prototype, it's the gameplay, right? Is there something to the gameplay? Can you extrapolate from what you see right now and see if this can be a fully fledged game or just a neat idea? Like they can tell me like, this is a very cool mechanic, but I don't think it can make a fully fledged game. So let's quit. I need to know what I'm going to do about my screen because you can see only half of it. Get rid of that. Maybe I'll do it like this. Yeah. Let me see in OBS what you see. So no, not like that. I want to see what you see. Yeah, so I'm gonna work on my left side. I'm gonna fix it for next time. Maybe I don't know, get a regular screen. So yeah, so let's jump right into Unity. I'm not going to make any specific Unity tutorials. Unity is our tool, is our framework, but it's not the reason why we're here. I think as game developers and as developers in general, we shouldn't like get married to a single framework. We're here to make games. That's what's important. If Unity allows us to make games, wonderful. If Godot is your tool, wonderful. If Unreal, whatever. It is important to match your technology to the game that you're making. If Unity didn't have ECS framework, I wouldn't work with it because you saw the gameplay and I want to extend upon that. I want to make like big, huge bases with resources moving around, and that's going to take a lot of entities in the game. And object-oriented just wouldn't handle that. We would get like, I don't know, 15 frames per second at max, or maybe 10 frames per second. And I don't want that. I want to make make the base game very performant so players could make huge bases and whatnot. So the future of the project will be ECS, Entity Component System. I don't know, by the way, I don't know anything about ECS in Unity, so I'm gonna learn it with you. I started if you want to see, I have the let's put it here. Yeah, So I have the manual always opened on ECS, and I'm currently learning it. The way I like to learn is from documentation and books. I also watch, of course, YouTube videos, but I think this is a lot more in depth. So I learn everything I need about the API. I go all over the documentation, and I know these walls of text might be scary in 2024, but the way I see it, it's the best way to learn in depth anything you want to learn. Books are more static. That's the problem with books, but documentation can be updated. So if you're going for a new framework, a new package, whatever, go over the documentation. And I would mostly recommend create a basic project with the framework first. But since I don't take my own advice, I'm going to jump right in and create my indie game. So yeah, I have this open, then I'm going over it. It shouldn't take me more than 1 week because I'm digesting the information slowly, and I'm trying stuff while I'm learning this, mini tests inside Unity. But in the long run, the project would have to be ECS. But for a prototype, we don't have to. So prototypes should be as simple as possible. Simple as possible. If object-oriented gives us this simplicity, great. If I knew ECS and I was fluent in ECS, then we would jump right into ECS. Whatever gives you the tools to make the game faster, use that tool, right? And don't be afraid to write bad code for prototypes. I know there's a lot of judgment from programmers out there. Bad code, it's okay if it's for a 1 week product, right? If it's for a hackathon, you don't need DI frameworks for a 1 week prototype. You need to make things as fast as possible, and that's what we want to do. So how do we start this prototype? First off, I really wanted to have a timer for the prototype so we can see we're up to 50 hours and not over. Maybe I'll do it in the next video. Maybe I'll do it once I have actually somebody watching this. I hope somebody find this and give me some feedback on how this can be better. But yeah. So except for the training, which is where I train with the ECS framework package, I'm using Unity 6. Why I'm using Unity 6? Because I like to try the Unity versions on prototypes and give them some feedback. And the thing about Unity versions, which kind of sucks, is let's say you're using the latest LTS, right? You're using 2022, and your game takes 3 to 4 years to make. By the time you finish your game, that version will probably be out of long-term service. Maybe I'm mistaken with their documentation. Maybe they do LTS for 6 years. I can't remember. All I remember is that we started Unity projects with 2018. And at some point we had to update the version because we were afraid we were not going to get some service for some bugs the engine had. Even if I'm starting a new project, and unstable versions are not the perfect way to start a project, but I would consider trying maybe above the latest LTS version, maybe, and if not the latest LTS, because you're gonna run through 3 to 4 years of development, hopefully less if you're smart, but and by the time you finish, you will need that the Unity's service. So I'm using Unity 6 because it's prototype, and maybe we will encounter some Unity bugs and we can report that, and maybe we see some new features which we like, and we can use that as well. So it's kind of empty. You can see I'm in the main scene. There's nothing here except the main camera, and I'm using a 2D a 2D renderer, because I'm going to make the game, at least for now, I'm going to make it 2D. In the future, when we will see some architecture, I don't care if the front end is 2D or 3D. The data is pure, so the front end doesn't really matter for the architecture, for the backend behind the scenes. So let's deconstruct the game and start making it. So the first things I want to make is I want to make some definitions. And what I like to do, especially in prototypes, and I'm going to see this a lot in my prototype series, I'm going to make the resources folder, and I'm going to make, let's call this game models. And in game models, I'm going to make all the game definitions. So in the game, you saw buildings, right, or nodes. We need to create some shared language here, but we'll work on it in the future. So we saw some buildings. There's military buildings, and there are economic buildings, and each has its own attributes, right? They have the health, their HP. And they have, if it's a military building, they have damage, and maybe how do they target enemies? How do they acquire targets, and stuff like that. So all of this is something I want the game designer to decide. In this case, it's me, right? But what I like to do is to give the game designer something called a data model or definition. And a data model is you can think about it like a row in Excel, and you can define all the attributes of an entity. Right, it's HP, damage, and stuff like that. And in Unity, specifically in prototypes, we can make it really easy with scriptable objects. So I'm going to make a new folder, and I'm going to call this. Actually, like to make this folder, which is called Organize, and I'm going to dump a lot of stuff in it. And once a day, 2 days, a week, whatever, depends on who's working on the project. I'd never push this, by the way, onto the repo if I'm working with other people. I hide this in the git ignore, but this is where I put a lot of the stuff before I organize it into specific folders. So in Organize, we're going to make a new folder. Let's call this definitions or data models. And let's create a new scriptable object. And first thing we're going to create, building. Okay. I'm not sure building is the best name, but whatever. Yeah. Get us a file name building, menu name scriptable object. No, let's call it TSG building. All right. I'm probably not going to create buildings per se, because I want stuff to inherit from building, like military building, economic building, and stuff like that. You don't have to use inheritance, by the way. You can use composition, but in this case, I think inheritance fits. So yeah. But for now, I'm going to use building. So for the sake of prototyping, everything is going to be public. Of course, if you're working on production code with other developers, don't use public everywhere. Use properties and everything that needs to be done. So public int HP. Right, this is like the base thing. Let's give it maybe a name. And a sprite. This is ECS stuff. I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. And now I can go to my resources, game models. Maybe create another folder called buildings, naming conventions, and create TSG building. All right. Let's call this just test building. And let's move the name up here. Let's call it test building. Give it an HP of 100. We can also do this. Oh. And view. So for the view, I don't know. No, I thought about taking a sprite from a free sprite generator on the internet, but I think I'm just going to be lazy and create 2D sprites circle. Basic sprite 2D. Okay, so we have our first building. That's its definition, right? I know this is, by the way, this is not the best Unity layout, but just gonna organize it. You have some saved layouts. I don't know if they made it to. Yeah, we'll find our layout in the future. We'll just start it off. I'm gonna get rid of all of that. Game, come here. Like project settings to be here, preferences to be here, and build settings can stay here. All right. Okay, so we have our first data model, and again, data models are stuff that designers are going to give values to, right? By the way, in production environments, we might read this data from the cloud and then create a scriptable objects to represent them locally and read them, etc. But if you're making a single player game or working on a prototype, just having scriptable objects is fine. It's dandy. It works. It's great. So how do we actually use it? So if you're familiar with the MVC architecture, or MVC, not design pattern, how it's called, design something, maybe design pattern, I don't think so. But the MVC allows you, it separates model, it separates the backend from the frontend. So MVC was started off as a way to separate UI from logic behind the scenes. From the model is something that sits behind the scenes. And there are a lot of MVC variables. I mean by that it has different implementations. So model view controller, classic model view controller has its own flow of how the controller speaks with the model. And then you have MVVM in Microsoft. I worked with it on the WPF framework. And you have a model view presenter, which the presenter is the one that's doing all the work. And what I like to work with is something I don't know if I've invented, but I like to work with it a lot. It's called, I call it MVI, which is, or DMVI, data model, which is just information. And most of the time the designer is gonna decide on the values here, and I even let the designer create its own data models. And data models like we created our own scriptable object. The designer can go create and then select the data model he wishes to create. Maybe I'll maybe I'll show you this on production projects that did it before, and you can get some more context. But we can create new characters with it. We can create new elements, new resources with it. Scriptable objects are great for this stuff. So this is the data model. Then we have the view. The view are mono behaviors. The mono behaviors sitting inside the scene, and they only show the data, right? They read the data and show it. Like a view, you can think about maybe if you have a character. So you have a character screen, and you need to show the character, maybe create an HP bar and stuff like that. So all of these things are views. They read the data behind the scenes, like characters, HP, characters, inventory, and stuff like that, and they show it to the player. And between those, lives something that's called an instance. And maybe I should open Paint for this one. It's very funny if I'm explaining all this just to myself, but fuck it. So you have a data model or D model. Also, I like to call it just model, right? Because model in classic MVC, a model can be changed by the controller. So the user interacts with the controller, but sees the view. The controller updates the model. In data models, you don't actually update the data model. Data model stays the same. You do update the instance. So a data model points to n instances. So each data model can have n instances. And to give it an implementation explanation, so think you have a goblin. A goblin can have HP, damage, stuff like that. But you can have multiple goblins in your game, right? Spawned and attacking the player. So those multiple goblins are the instances of those data models. So each data model can point to n instances. And each n instances can point to n views. By the way, this is not a pure view. I actually thought about changing its name to simulated object, SO, or something like that, because the view actually sends callbacks to the instance, because the view lives inside the simulation. So on collision enter, for example. So the view doesn't decide what to do with on collision enter. It just tells the instance, I have something collided with me. And then the instance decides what to do with it. So the instance, like in classic MVC, is a lot like the controller, right? So the instance can point to multiple views, right? To multiple views. So again, imagine you have your main character. You're making an RPG game and you have your main character. So one view can be the HP bar, like at the HUD, and another view can be the character itself, the 3D model of the character. Another view can maybe be a character sheet or a character inventory screen, which you open to the right. So all of these things are different kinds of views for the same data model, for the same instance, I should say. And you can see how this can be extended to more games, especially for systematic games, right? This is an architectural pattern specifically for systematic games, which you have a lot of definitions and stuff and instances which have that definition in the background. If it's not very clear, or if you want more information about this architecture, I would love to make a video specifically on this architecture and show games that I made with this architecture and how it lends itself to good production, because the designers can now create data models. The technical artists or artists can create views, which specifically in Unity it means prefabs, and the programmers can work on instances, which is where all the logic happens. And it in terms of production, it makes the production really easy in a multiple people team. So yeah, if you want more info, I'll be glad to expand on it in the future. So we're not actually written any code, but I want to go eat lunch. So if this was helpful in any way, I know it's all been a premise, and we actually haven't done anything. We haven't really pressed the play button yet or put anything in our scene. But if you like what I'm speaking about, what I'm going to do with this channel, feel free to subscribe, to contact me if you want to see specific content I'll put up. It's my obligation to make this game, and part of why I'm making these live stream is because I want to feel obligated towards making this game, and I don't just want to make it in a vacuum. I want other people to hold me accountable if I'm making progress or not, and that's you, yeah. So yeah, I hope you had fun from what we've done so far. I will be back in about, I guess, an hour or two, and I'll try to make these live streams more scheduled for me and for you. But yeah, I hope you find this useful. And I'll check my microphone and then if you can hear well and whatnot. That's it. Goodbye. How do I close this now? I think need to go to YouTube.